Continuing discussion of classical conditioning. Previously, I talked about Pavlov and his classic study with dogs and how he conditioned salivation to a sound of a bell. Now we are going to talk about how work in classical conditioning was extended to other types of responses, and some people like John Watson wondered if we could condition emotions. Is there such a thing as a conditioned emotional response? And so Watson set out to investigate this idea with his graduate student Rosalie Raynor. So the investigators were Watson and Raynor for this particular study I'm going to talk about. And it involved only one participant, and it was an infant. He started off as a 9-month-old infant, and this lasted until a few more months beyond this. And so in the beginning, remember with conditioning, you have to first have a neutral stimulus of some sort. And so they exposed the baby named Albert. They call this is often called the Little Albert study. They exposed Albert to various stimuli to determine that they were neutral to him. That he, in this case, he had no reaction, in particular, no fear reaction to these things. So he showed them, they showed Albert white furry animals and other things that were similar to white furry animals in some way. So like they showed him a white rat, and it was also, trying to remember, a rabbit, a monkey, and then they also showed him burning newspaper. I always thought that was a weird one to include there, but that was in there. And they established that Albert had no fear response to any of these things. And so then when he was 11 months old, they started conditioning trials. Remember, with conditioning, you pair a neutral stimulus with something that has a natural reaction to it or a pre-existing reaction to it, something that we would call an unconditioned stimulus. In this case, loud noise near a baby. What often happens when you do something like that? In this case, they banged on a metal pipe. When I learned this, when I was in college, I was told it was a metal bar. And when I learned about it in an additional class, the professor described it as like a metal gong. But the textbook I'm using says a pipe. I'm going to stick with that. But it's consistent that it was a loud noise of some sort. Babies, they don't like loud noises. They have a reaction to that. So what happens if you do a loud noise near an infant? They cry. They have this startle, this fear response. And so the neutral stimulus in this study is a white rat. They had plenty of rats around because there was a lot of maze research and whatnot going on. And this was at Johns Hopkins University, by the way. And so they present Albert with a white rat, which is a neutral stimulus, no reaction. But they start to pair the white rat with the unconditioned stimulus, which is the loud sound. All right, so with classical conditioning, you pair two stimuli, you link them, you connect them, you associate them repeatedly, over and over and over again. So every time Albert would approach the white rat, they would bang the loud metal pipe. They'd make the noise. All right, so every time he'd go near that rat, he'd hear that loud noise. All right. What do you think happened over time? The more they do this, the more likely it is that we can see a conditioned response, a learned response. Now, what was the unconditioned response? You remember how unconditioned response is the one that a pre-existing response? That is crying to the loud noise. Crying to the loud noise is an unconditioned response. It's already there. It's already present. The conditioned response is crying to the rat by itself. So they present the rat. They don't bang the pipe, but Albert starts crying. All right. Once that happens, you've got a conditioned response. Now, is this study controversial? Yes, it is, for a variety of reasons. It involves an infant. And nowadays we got a lot of specific ethical rules and such that we have to follow if we are going to involve infants in studies. And also there are issues with, there's just one participant. Deconditioning was not carried out with Albert. And we actually have evidence after the fact. Albert the person we think was Albert passed away at age 6 from unrelated reasons, but we have evidence that he might have had neurological impairment from birth. So there are some issues with this original study with Watson. Also, there was some controversy because Watson was married, but he had an affair with his graduate student, Rosalie Raynor. Why am I mentioning this? It's not because I think, 100-year-old gossip is cool. It's because he got fired because of the controversy over this. And so he actually lost his position at Johns Hopkins. And so his career might have been different. The additional research we got out of Watson might have been different if he had continued in his position. So moving on from the controversy revolving around this particular study, what did we get from it? Okay, we did get evidence that you can indeed condition an emotional response. We have other evidence for this, and this has been applied in a variety of areas, but in particular, this has been useful for clinical psychology. I remember clinical psychology, you're trying to help people with various problems. With clinical psychology, some clinical psychologists work with people who have phobias or just general fears that they're trying to get over. And we can use conditioning principles to decondition them, to get the thing that they fear paired with non-upsetting stimuli. And so this has been useful for helping us understand how to undo certain types of emotional responses that cause problems for a person. All right, so yes, we can condition emotions, and one of the earliest bits of evidence for that came from the Little Albert study with Watson and Raynor.